You know, when most people say Xbox nowadays, they're usually talking about the Xbone. However, when I say it, there's only one beauty that comes to mind. And yes, calling your third system the Xbox One is still a dumb idea, Microsoft. For everyone who had an Xbox back in the day, one of the huge titles on the radar was Fable, a promised RPG epic from the mind of Peter Molyneux? I can't say his name. Skip it! Now, I've personally never played this all the way through prior to this review, but now that I have, what do I think? Well, gather around, fellow nerds, let's discuss Fable for the Microsoft Xbox. So I'm going to sort of spoil my ultimate view on Fable right away here. Overall, it's clunky and a bit dull. A big part of this is due to the combat in both structure and flow. In Fable, you have three methods of fighting: melee, range, and magic. You have access to swords, axes, pickaxes, greatswords, bows, crossbows, and a plethora of spells at your disposal. The more you use a certain method of attack, the more experience points you gain to spend for each specific method, allowing you to increase your max health, speed of your attacks, ranged accuracy, spell potency, and so on. Certain weapons can even be augmented with a special element token to add lightning or fire damage to the mix. This all seems well and good until one actually tries playing. You ever notice how the movements of, say, a toddler are rather jerky and uncoordinated? That's how the combat flow of this game is. None of the attacks have any real fluidity, and switching between weapon styles, while never faltering, causes a noticeable interruption to whatever rhythm you previously had. One can get used to it, yes, but it's not exactly an excessively enjoyable fighting system. Especially how, when blocking melee strikes, your character becomes locked in place and can only move via a flick of the analog stick. It just kind of feels odd. Another issue is the balancing in magic. Compared to melee and especially ranged, the magic attacks feel simply underpowered. One would think zapping a foe with jolts of lightning or burning them alive would cause far more harm than an arrow, but no, arrows all the way. Enough about combat though, let's move on to the presentation and overall mood here. Fable takes place in the world of Albion, your typical Tolkien-esque fantasy world with a more cartoonish look and British humor. A moment I loved was when, while in an isolated prison, you're forced to race with the other prisoners, lose, and your character gets tortured. Win, and this happens.
Welcome to my modest quarters. You have earned yourself a singular reward, one of my world-famous poetry readings. Yes, that's right. These stone walls cannot still the beating heart of a poet. I don't want to hear one sound from you. Pouring forth one's soul requires the utmost concentration.
Several little moments like this add some much needed character to the game, as the environments and people within Albion really aren't that interesting. Albion is centered around the legends of heroes, extraordinary men and women who rise from a standard life to do either good or ill in the world. In Fable, the playable hero starts off as a child where we meet his sister, father, briefly, and see his town burned by bandits. Afterwards, we see him learn the ways of hero at the Guild of...
Hero, your will energy is low.
The Guild of...
Your health is low. Do you have any potions?
This guy never shuts up! I know my health and mana are low, just let me do my thing.
Hero, your will energy is low. What's that?
The Guild of Heroes, who seem to be oddly neutral on how their students turn out.
For many years now, you have worked hard to earn yourselves the title of hero. Today, that apprenticeship ends and you go out into the world to do great deeds. Deeds that will bring you the gratitude of thousands, or strike fear into their hearts.
Bandit clans row the lands in loose alliances, small towns have traders wandering the country, and hostile creatures pose a constant threat. Besides these facts though, Albion isn't really fleshed out. At no point did I feel invested in this slightly goofy world, as there's simply no cohesive feeling here. Part of this is due to how often loading screens are present, which I'll get to later, and the rather short main story. Completing the main storyline took me a little over 6 hours, with several more spent on side quests, all of which were dull at worst and mildly interesting at best. A big part of Fable is the good or evil system and how your character will drastically alter appearance based on alignment. I went more for the evil alignment, because I'm such a bastard, it's overwhelming. and liked how certain bandits would act friendly towards me and regular NPCs would generally flee in terror. It's a fine system which works to an extent, but isn't as fleshed out as similar systems in other RPGs, say Knights of the Old Republic. As you can no doubt tell by the footage, the game has a blocky look to its characters. Nothing looks bad, and it certainly emphasizes the cartoonish aspect I mentioned earlier, although people in Albion tend to have rather square chins. Handsome Squidward, they ain't. It does suffer from things not being too detailed, but it still looks fairly nice. So I brought up the loading screens. There's a crap ton of them in between the small areas, menus, cutscenes, maps, and such. There are so many, it really does hamper the flow of the game and makes traversing the world a bit annoying when every 2 minutes you have to go through yet another loading screen. To be fair, Fable isn't terrible. They're certainly fun to be had, and I can understand how it ended up spawning 2 sequels. I won't get into all the false promises which weren't delivered by Mr. Peter, but I really can't understand why so many people consider this game to be among the best on the original Xbox. I mean, really? Among the best? This? Yeah, no. Fable earns a 6.5 out of 10. Alright, Fiddle Frame. I got Custom Robo. I do too many GameCube games already. Oh hey, you just caught me going through my game library trying to find out what I should review next. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that little bell so you always get notifications when I upload something new. And be sure to leave a comment and a like if you so like, because that really helps me out. Alright, what should I do